All right. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I know we're a few minutes late. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. But it's Friday and we're here. I'm coming to you live from Iron Fire Workspaces in Los Angeles, California. And I am really excited. It's been a minute since I did a live stream. And hello to those of you watching on YouTube. Hello to those of you watching the recording. I have someone who's joining me today that I can't wait to introduce her. She and I met a few years ago now when we were both members of Meeting Professionals International Northern California chapter. Since then, she has just grown into such a celebrity in the diversity and inclusion world. But she really spearheaded a lot of the initiatives to bring that topic to light within not only MPI Northern California, but within MPI Global. And so with that, I am so excited to welcome Zoe Moore.
Can I dance? Is that okay?
You can absolutely dance. Yes, this is a dance appropriate event.
She said celebrity. I'm looking for that celebrity band. My financial advisor right here. How do I?
Well, I mean, we were talking a little bit backstage, quote unquote backstage, before we started. The reason I got into this, the financial industry is that I felt like there was not really a voice for women, to women, and diversity and inclusion for women in that industry really is sort of a buzzword. It's sort of a hot topic. So I wanted to ask you, oh gosh, the lights went off in here, so I'm glowing now in this meeting room I'm in. So tell me, what is a hospitality EDI strategic consultant? What is all of that?
What is all of that? So, we're familiar with DEI as an acronym, diversity as a singular word that's used to, create advocacy around the importance of representation in, companies, or when we go through the acronym, equity, making sure there's pay equity and inclusion and making sure that everyone's voice is heard. And so what I found in my journey, like we talked about with MPI and CCS meeting there, I was a student. I was getting my master's in hospitality and recreation, and just quickly observed that there was a lack of representation within, the chapter and within MPI as a whole, as an organization. And so I started asking a lot of questions. And so to be a EDI, which I switched around the acronym, we'll talk about that shortly, because I emphasize equity, is to be someone who is an event planner, who's a hospitality professional, who understands tourism. And I come from within the industry speaking about the needs of advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, and I consult companies, initially I was preaching to the choir, and now I consult leaders who want to write anti-racism policies, look at, their pay, their historical pay inequity or their pay gaps. And look at initiatives and programs in a strategic way. So how to move from their express commitment to a strategy that's going to be measurable and sustainable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a great segue. I mean, my next question for you was going to be, where did the idea for your business come from? It sounds like it was needed, right? You were seeing some big areas of need within that industry.
If anyone out there is an entrepreneur, you know that one, we wear many hats, but the iteration of building a business is like how often we change a purse or a pair of earrings. I'm constantly growing. Started as a resource evangelist, which I've kind of returned back to, but just seeing how to be the bridge between Black and brown vendors, suppliers that weren't getting exposure, into seeing that there was a lack of education around the subject altogether. And so just really started focusing on supplier diversity. And then now Grow with Zomo has just emerged from several different projects, because I want people to join me on this journey of learning, grow, and that it's a process. So, yeah.
So talk to me about what you were doing in Michigan a few months ago. Tell me about that.
Hi, Larissa Draves. Look, Michigan. Wow, what a great state that I knew nothing about. I was at the Peer Michigan Governors Conference. Prior to that, working on a team with Tourism Diversity Matters, met Dave Lorenz of Peer Michigan. got called upon to be a keynote speaker, which was an amazing experience, amazing stage. And just spoke on the difference between, hiring for a culture ad rather than culture fit. It's
Yeah.
when we talk about making sure our environment is not only inviting and inclusive, but liberating and allowing people to be their authentic selves. So yeah, I just was a keynote speaker there, as well as did some breakout sessions with Travel Unity. Sophia came along with me. Her last name escapes my mind at this very moment, but if you look up Travel Unity, you can learn more about their initiative and what they were doing. So just as Jessica hops back on, I think she's having some technical difficulties, but we are live. And I wish there was some.
There we go. I'm back.
I'm like sitting here like chatting to myself.
This day is just testing me, but that's real life, right? I want to repeat something that you said before, because I thought it was so well said, that it's important to hire not just for culture fit, but for culture add, right?
Yeah.
How can we improve by bringing on new people?
Yeah, I think, first, like the class, I'm teaching a class right now. We'll talk about that. Look, that, one, we have to identify our cultural competence, our awareness of all the different social identities. There is not one norm. That culture fit often becomes this coded language that we use to say, if you don't act like me, if you don't speak like me, if your hair doesn't look like mine, then you don't fit into this culture. You're not professional. And as we begin to unpack DEI, because it's not a monolith, we have to recognize that our identities are different. It's okay to recognize our difference. It's okay to recognize our different struggles. But what we have to identify is that this system that forces people to behave the same, or to operate or function like the dominant culture, like speaking English, it has this stigma around, like, if you don't speak English, then you're not smart. And that can define our culture in a way that it makes people feel excluded, or actually not just feel excluded, but they are excluded and not recognized for the value that they bring to your organization. So yeah, we have to really, I would say, demystify it, or just really break it apart and recognize that this informs our biases, where we don't recognize that someone else speaking 3 or 4 languages, being from a different culture, can really help us have that innovative advantage within our company.
Yeah. Okay. And so we talked a little bit about what some companies are doing to address that. How are some ways that individuals can really get involved in a meaningful way with diversity and inclusion in a positive way?
Yeah, I'll do a shameless plug right now. So I'm teaching a course called the Event DEI Strategist course with Event Institute. It launched January 25th. There are 3 more cohorts for the year. And, on the individual level, where we're starting is identifying that we have not necessarily come from schools or institutions that really taught us how to critically think, or how to even develop emotional intelligence. So now I'm taking it all the way back, not assuming that people have a knowledge of what is diversity, what does equity mean, what does include. Let's talk about it, and let's talk about it in a way that it's not me talking at you, but let's engage in dialogue to really strengthen our critical thinking muscle, so that, and emotional intelligence, to increase that. So as we have these conversations, when we say something like white privilege, it doesn't shut somebody down like, oh my gosh, you're judging me, you're hurting my feelings, but they understand not only the history of it, but the social impact of it that has a residual, impact on how we engage. And so starting there with education, I am a proponent of education. I just think that we have to dig into what we know, what we think we know, and challenge that, because if not, our biases will only marinate and just come out in the worst kind of way in our behavior and our actions and the decisions that we make within our companies. So
yeah. And I think everyone's got a different perspective too. I mean, if we were to ask one person, what does diversity and inclusion mean to
Yep.
them? It's going to be a different answer from
Right.
every person.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I mean, we all,
that's okay. But what we have to be able to do when we create what I call a shared learning experience is if we look at, and this is one of the exercises that we do, if we look at the definition that's provided by the dictionary and we don't even have a conversation and we just accept it at face value, then we're unable to have a robust conversation. You know, diversity is not just race, it's not just gender, it's not just one identity. I am a woman, I'm a Black woman, I'm a veteran, I'm a single mom. Everything within my environment and the way that I grew up influences who I am and my identity. But we also have to recognize that when you have layers or multitudes of marginalized social identities, then it becomes even more difficult for you to function in a society that wasn't built for you. So we have to be able to have a full conversation. And sometimes what frustrates me in the conversation is when we're talking about diversity, if we're not specific about what we're talking about, like if I want to focus on racial diversity or gender diversity, and someone says, oh, but don't forget about diversity of thought. The first thing that I say in response to that is, historically, when you look at laws, there were no laws that were legalizing racial segregation. So when we're talking about racial diversity, we're talking about looking back at history and identifying that there were barriers created economically and housing and healthcare. Let's be real. Let's not try to scope the conversation. Let's be direct and specific.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's about being curious, right? Being open, being curious. So with that context, who do you consider someone who is a mentor or an inspiration? You know, because I think it's important to feel like you can relate to someone and look up to them. So who is that for you?
Oh, nowadays, honestly, I've been, in Marietta, Georgia for the last 2 years, kind of in isolation as a solopreneur. But my inspiration comes from the network that I'm building on LinkedIn. You have Madison Butler on LinkedIn. You have Elizabeth Leiba, Farzine Farzad. These are individuals that really strengthen my lexicon and my ability to critical think and just virtually lean on. I've never met them in person, but their power, their ability to just be vulnerable has really helped me grow in building my own business and not shielding myself and not, I've really pulled away from this using someone's comfort as my measurement of success.
I like that one.
This isn't a topic that I'm supposed to come in and entertain you and make you comfortable and make it easy and digestible. If we really want to make some sustainable and measurable change, we have to have some very real conversations. And that's going to shake a lot of people's foundation, and we're not going to agree on a lot of topics. It is a very polarized conversation, but it doesn't have to be, and so. Yeah, I look to my LinkedIn virtual support system. In my mind, they're my brothers, my sisters, my cousins, where we're sitting around the table, having a good meal and having some very real conversations.
Yeah, yeah. And I think vulnerability, that's the word that you use that I think is so important. And I have found that probably in the last 6 or 9 months, also on LinkedIn, but on different social media channels, the times that I have felt the most connection and had the most people reach out to me is when I'm being vulnerable and sharing things that are maybe uncomfortable for me and comfortable for other people to read about, but it's real and it's real life. And they go, oh man, I'm glad to hear someone else is thinking that or saying that. And it resonates with them.
Yeah, because and I want to be mindful of time because when you get me to talking, I'll start. So you just give me some signals.
Yeah, I mean, you're passionate about it. I love that.
Yeah. But what we have to identify with, the new wave of people being vulnerable, for those who are responding like, oh my gosh, this is LinkedIn, or that's your personal business. Like my grandma used to tell me growing up, don't put your business out in the streets. That's the generation that she grew up, right? And so we're socialized to believe that we're supposed to be robots, and like one of my colleagues likes to say, Dawn Bennett, she says, we are human beings. not human doings, so
Woo! We got a lot of good nuggets today.
this socialization comes from, we are trying to fit into this singular narrative, this singular identity or phenotype. And I won't even go into the depth of that. It's really, we have to realize that our differences make us strong. And that's not to be anecdotal. That's to say that if I get to know you and your strengths and your weaknesses, then that kind of yin and yang, that balance that we can create produces, better outcomes. And that, from a business standpoint, from a business case standpoint, that's been proven by Oxford, Stanford, McKinsey, that, companies that are in the higher percentile of gender diversity, racial diversity, have better revenue outcomes, produce more innovation because different perspectives are in the room. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on. This is something that I just think it's so important, and it hurts, honestly. It's so close to my heart that it hurts when people are just so obstinate in their views and are not realizing what James Baldwin says, not realizing or not just cognizant of the fact that their perspectives are essentially leading to the denial of someone's human rights, and their inability to see that. It's like, I just want to sit with them and be like, who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Yeah.
Obstinance has to come from somewhere,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I love that. And I can tell how passionate you are about it. I appreciate you giving some time to me today so we could talk about this. What is the best place for people to find you?
You can find me at growwithzomo.com.
Okay.
If you do that, you can find me strategy at growwithzomo.com is my email.
Okay.
You can hit me.
And I'll put the links. I'll put the links below. We'll share it on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, I'm active, not as active as I should be, but I'm active on LinkedIn.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you. And I appreciate everyone's patience because of our technical difficulty. It was me today. My headphones didn't want to work. I'm literally in a dark room right now, and I have my ring light blaring in my face. But next week, I will have another Lunchtime Live. I'm doing it with Katie Belfi, who is a readiness and resilience consultant. She is an amazing attorney out of Texas. I will also have links to everything from today and links for next week on my Linktree. And you can also see recordings of some of the past amazing women that I have chatted with. But I would love to hear from you about who else you would like for me to chat with, because I think there's some really wonderful voices out there that need to be heard. And since I have the gift for gab, if nothing else, I'd love to chat with some fantastic people. So thank you again to Zoe for coming out. And have a good one, everyone.
Have a good one. Thank you, Jessica.
All right.